And she hated the feminists for being, trying to put themselves above men. It was part of, or equal to them. She wrote a column for the LA Times in the mid-60s that's caused her a lot of trouble until the end of her life, and people still talk about it, in which she said she would hate to see a female president because that would mean she wasn't, she wasn't a real woman-man worshiper. She meant something very peculiar by that. She certainly never let herself be stopped by man worship.
Hi. Would you say she was at peace with herself? Because she had this philosophy. I've never read any of her books. I'm going to read your book. Even though I was around during that period, it never really interested me beyond a certain point.
I'm trying to think if there was a moment when she was at peace with herself. Perhaps after she finished writing Atlas Shrugged and before it was published, she had an interval of happiness and fulfillment and a sense that she was in the right place at the right time. Once it was published, the reception that it received from critics and intellectuals, thinkers, was devastating to her, even though she expected it. She just wasn't able to imagine as vicious a response as she got to Atlas Shrugged. And she fell into a depression. And after that, I don't think she was ever really happy again. I don't know. I mean, I'm sure she had moments of it. But first she was driven by her mission, and then she was disappointed by the reception of Atlas Shrugged.
I used to read quite a lot of Ayn Rand, and it struck me that at some point after writing Atlas Shrugged, maybe in her second or third philosophical work, she became very negative, and a lot of that sort of hopefulness was lost. And I was wondering, you didn't touch on this, but did that have something to do with her experience with Nathaniel Branden, or, I mean, were there autobiographical reasons why you think the focus of her writing shifted from sort of idealism to real negativism?
She said in the year after Atlas Shrugged was published that she would never write fiction again because there was no worthy audience to receive it. That she'd been wrong about people. She thought there was a real group of people who would understand her and take her banner and run with it. And I think she became more and more bitter about that. As time went on, she became terribly negative. And the fascinating thing is that so many people still wanted to be near her. And her followers, who numbered in the thousands in the 60s, really adored her, in spite of the almost at times abusive language that she uses about current events and the general run of us human beings.
Did you explore in the Russian culture? I've spent a lot of time with Russians, and I'm quite familiar with them. I don't speak the language, but I have a very good sense of it. And I've also read a little, and they said that it's part because of the cultural traditions of Russia. Many Russians are really quite negative. Is a character trait. I'm not saying I believe that, but I have a lot of experience. It's mostly positive, actually. But there's a connection with their historical situation. Do you think that played a factor in it?
That's interesting because her sister, whom she lost contact with in the late 1930s when it became dangerous for Westerners to correspond with Russians, visited Ayn Rand in their near old age, and her sister was incredibly negative, so could be.
Do you see her as a philosopher? I can't see it myself, but...
No. I spent a long time trying to figure out what word I could use other than philosophy or philosopher, and in the end I just gave it up because that's what she called what she did, and it's a system of ideas. I think that's a better designation for it. And it also became an ideology in the sense, somebody defined ideology as what's left after you've scrubbed the process of developing these ideas out, and all you're left with is the crust of the ideas. But I don't know I'm not a philosopher or a historian of philosophy, so I'm probably not qualified to say, but it didn't strike me as something like existentialism, for example.
The woman who introduced you referred to her as, I don't remember the exact words, something like deeply disturbed or deeply damaged. Do you agree?
Oh, she was reading from a characterization in a book review. Deeply damaged, yes, I do agree. She damaged herself. Yeah, the title Ayn Rand and the World She Made is meant in the end to convey the idea that she preferred to remain in her own world than to grapple with reality, and she paid a price for that.
I was wondering if you, in the course of your research, found anything interesting about her relationship with Ludwig von Mises or Murray Rothbard?
Oh, yeah, I did. Mises is especially interesting. Von Mises was a European economist, a free market economist. What did they call that school, Fred? Austrian School of Economics. She and he ran into each other at various times during the 1940s and 50s and early 60s. And they didn't agree on anything but free market capitalism, really. Mises thought it was perfectly okay to have a draft, for example. Rand felt that it was the ultimate breaking of individual rights to have to, be forced to risk your life for the state. And I think they argued over that. She would abuse him to friends when he wasn't around, but she also recommended his books to people who needed to learn about economics. And Rothbard, as you probably know, became a 6-month member of her cult, leading member of her cult, and then his mischievousness got him into trouble, and that was the end of that.
What accounts for the renewed interest in Atlas Shrugged among college students? That's my first question. And my second question is, what was her attitude towards the State of Israel?
Okay, we'll take the second question first. She thought Israel was an island of democracy and reason in a sea of unreason. What was the first question? Oh, college students, the revival of Ayn Rand. She is selling more books in the year 2009 than I think her sales, I don't know, they're going way, way, way up. And the most straightforward explanation is that the events in Atlas Shrugged seem to mirror the events we're living through right now, but in a more apocalyptic way. Atlas Shrugged is the story of when the state tries to run the economy, what happens to the economy, and it's the story of great men of the mind who withdraw from society to show everybody how much they're needed in the economy. It was written at a time when labor unions liked to strike, so she thought, well, what if the inventors and industrialists went on strike? What would happen to the world? And what happens to the world is, I describe Atlas Shrugged as a deconstruction of the idea from each according to his ability, to each according to his need. And I think that people see some hints of socialism in the way the government, both under Bush and under Obama, has reacted to the collapse of parts of the economy.